Your dissolves are coming along nicely. You replace the image. Good. One thing is this disappears pretty quickly, whereas the other stuff, let's see what happens. It goes off just before, so you might want to have that disappear as the new image is coming in, actually. And I'll just hit play and play from there. It's looking great. And again, these are just ways of pushing your work, not constructive, not a criticism of everyone. I just want everyone to get their best work possible. Just be careful here. Your text is disappearing. I mean, the easy fix, since this is longer than it needs to be, you just change where your render line ends. And let's go right there. We can trim that as well. See how Kate Winslet here is fading off as that's coming on. So just make sure, for consistency's sake, that this fades off when the other one's coming in. Because that abrupt, I mean, that's simple. That's just dragging this layer. Let's even hit the U key and see if you have the keyframes. No. That's just adding the keyframes there. But you know what I like even better? Look at this. Wait, let me drag that a little bit more. After a while, the newspaper, no it doesn't. Let's see, where's the newspaper? If the newspaper layer is above that, it'll cover the name. Let me just play with fire here. I'm going to take the last half of your animation. See right here, I can tell just by looking at your timeline, okay? I'm going to put this above, just to see what's going to happen here. And that newspaper. Okay, so that was fading in from something else. Alright, well, like I said, just fade that off and you'll be good before that image fully comes up. It's looking great. Come along very nicely. Possibly. Let me see. What might look nice over this last image is a light leak. Just to bring a little bit of interest to it. Let's see what that looks like. I'm not going to do a leak. I'm going to do... Let's throw a flare over it. I'll do a flare, and I'll test these two. So I'm going to drag them into the timeline, shove them down here. And first, we'll try the flare. So I'll turn off the light leak. Now, when you're working with light effects, remember, let me just slide that to there. You want to do either a screen or an add to remove the darkest parts of it. So I'm just going to throw a screen on this. Right there, you got a little bit of extra interest in there. That's what it looks like with the lens flare. See if this is animated. Yeah, that's animated. So I'm going to drag that down a little bit more, and I'll have it come in a little later. So I'll chop off the beginning of it. See, like that. Now, if we take those last few layers, drag them out, make them a little longer. Now you'll have that extra little bit of interest with that light, the lens flare. So let's just see that. See, adding a little bit of life to that. That's what it looks like with a lens flare and with a light leak. I'll set that to a screen. There it is with the light leak. But do you see how that extra little bit helps add some depth to the shot? Hey, Julia. Oh, okay, I see what you're talking about with the 4 newspapers now. I just looked up at the chat. But, yeah, so I'm just showing you how adding extra elements adds a little bit of interest to the shot. I'll put up some leaks and flares for the class. I think I may have already done that. I'm not sure. But this is coming along great. I like the pacing. Just be careful that your type animates off, like fades off before the next image fully comes on. Then it will be more consistent, like here in the beginning, where that looks great. When it comes off, like, wait, it's the first person, Kate Winslet. See right there? That fade as that's coming up, that's great timing. So just working something like that, and it'll look great. Maybe add some music. Oh wait, you did add music, but I've never gotten the file. Or maybe you didn't for this one. But yeah, a little bit of music, and you got something really nice here. So fantastic. It's coming along great. Do you have any questions? And like I said, I'll put up the light leaks and flares for you to take a look at. I may have already done that. I'm not sure, but... Oh no, I did the ink drops. Hello, Peter? Yep, I agree with everything you said. Okay. How do I link the file? Are you talking about music? Okay, so if you want to bring music into After Effects, when you're in your project panel, if you double click on an empty spot, you can import files, or you could always go the trusty way of file, import file. And I suggest getting copyright-free music from YouTube. And I always date when I get files from YouTube, just so I can find like the latest, greatest, whatever. I'll just grab this random song and hit import. Here's my audio file. I can throw it anywhere I want into my file. Doesn't really matter. And if you want your music to line up at a certain part, just keep twirling down your arrows till you get to audio levels, and then waveform. Now you can see the waveform. So right here, I can tell there won't be music for the first few frames. If I want to fix that, I could slide this down, and now music's going to automatically start when the file starts. And I think if I hit the space bar, the music will play. Let me take off my headphones and listen. I don't know if my microphone picked up that club jam, but yeah, you just hit the space bar and it will preview the music. And if the music gets distracting or it's slowing down your render, just click the speaker icon right there to mute it again, and you'll just play your animation as is. So hopefully that goes over all the music stuff that you had in mind. Now, before I go on to Julia's next, then Peter. They changed the rendering in After Effects. I want to make sure everybody knows how to do this. So it's under your preferences, and on a Mac, you would click on the icon up in the corner, but ultimately you want to go Edit Preferences. And you want to be at Memory and Performance. And if you clicked on the wrong thing, it doesn't really matter because you can get to it from this side menu. See right there, Memory and Performance. Make sure Enable Multi-Frame Rendering is turned off. So that's what it looks like on. That's what it looks like off. You want to make sure it is clicked off and then hit OK. Then your next step is, instead of going to Media Encoder, go to Add to Render Queue. So that's Composition, Add to Render Queue. Now, what you're going to do here is you're going to have to render once as a QuickTime and then open it up in Media Encoder and change it. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So I click on the word lossless, and I'm going to change that to QuickTime. And then I'll hit OK. And this next blue text is what you call it and where it's going to go. I'm going to save it to my desktop. I'm going to call it test AE, so I know it's the After Effects MOV file, even though MOV will be in the file name, and I hit save. Lastly, I just hit render because my render bars are all lined up with where I want them to be. So I hit render, hit OK, and I just wait for it to render out. And that's going to take a little bit longer than I want to. So I'm going to hit stop so I don't waste everyone's time. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do the first few seconds, okay, so that I'm not wasting everyone's time. Again, composition, add to, whoops, not add to media encoder, sorry about that. Add to render queue. It's fine, media encoder will open up in the background, and because that's going to be the next step anyway, so it's good that I opened it. So again, I'm changing the format to QuickTime, hit OK, name it. I'll call this test AE2. Hit save. Then I hit the render button right here, not Q in AME, Adobe Media Encoder. So that popped up in there. I'm going to delete it so my media encoder is empty. Always want to make sure that's empty to avoid confusion. All right, so I hit render, and it's going to render real quick because it's only a couple seconds, like such. So we'll pretend I did the whole file. I hit here, and I'm just hitting backspace to empty out my queue. Now, when you've rendered out your animation, you open up Media Encoder and click this plus here because we've got an MOV. Those are very big. Those are very bulky. You're going to waste your time transferring it up, and it's just going to eat up a lot of space. So see, here's my MOV file. I select it and hit open. And now I can make it H.264. Right there, if the drop down, if you don't have that, just click on the arrow, H.264, high bit rate. And if you need to change it, just click on the drop down, H.264 high bit rate. This is the name and what it's going to be called and where it's going. And it's going to be an MP4, so I'll just call this compressed. You would just call it final, like underscore final. So, and then you hit the green arrow right here, the play button, and it's going to convert that MOV to an H.264. H.264 will play on a Mac or a PC. I just hit backspace to delete that. So yeah, that's basically it in a nutshell. So now I've got my MOV and my H.264. The H.264 is a smaller file. It'll play on Mac, PC, you can upload to YouTube, etc. That's basically what most people use for delivering their work. Like right here, you've got a hard edge. You need to make this a seamless texture or go heavier to make it look like it's cut out of pieces of paper or something like that. So that's it at full resolution. Now, did you get rid of all the puppet pinning? Yeah, so if you just put the scales in here, let's just pretend this is fully tiled out. Let's rotate that. Grab a couple of them. Let's see if there's a way we can soften that edge in here just to make it a little bit more feathered and line up. And I'm going to make sure that this is larger than the tallest part it needs to be at. So I'll put this right here. I'm going to duplicate it, Command D. Now, let's slide this down to about there, okay? See what we've got going on? Now, I'm going to, on my duplicate right here, with it selected, I'll draw a little bit of a mask. Nope. Wait a second. So let's try subtract, and then I'll hit F to feather it. And that looks really good. So all I had to do was just line it up and feather in between them. I didn't even have to go into Photoshop. So that means if I duplicate this one that is feathered already, by hitting Command D. See, that's seamless. And I'll duplicate it one more time. Line it up. Now I'm going to pre-compose all these. Move all attributes to a new comp. So now I can slide that around a little bit, like such. And inside the body, I can pre-comp these, and I'll use it as an alpha matte. Move all attributes. And I'm going to duplicate this, because if I use it as an alpha matte, you'll only see the scales. So I'm going to duplicate it, Control D, put it above. And so this is going to be my matte. I click on the layer below, go to my track matte. So if you're not seeing your switches and modes, click there. So these are your switches. These are your modes. In modes, matte goes above, layer below, select on it, hit alpha matte. Now you've got that going on. And we could always use that texture as a blending mode. I'll do overlay just so I don't waste everyone's time. So that's inside where the puppet pinning is. So your puppet pinning should be right there. Yep. Inside that pre-comp, we put the image so that it distorts when your puppet pins move. Like such. Like that. And that'll help resolve the texturing issue you had. That already looks a lot better. Now let's open up the other one you had. Okay, that's where the puppet pinning is. Okay, gotcha. Good. Okay, that's much better. All right, great. Good. So just do that thing I showed you with feathering out that mask, and it'll look a lot better. You won't have those hard edges to contend with. Okay, I'm good, because you had so much nice motion. Okay, so if that's that, now it's full dragging all the layers that were below it. Okay, that's what full dragon looks like. All right. Is your puppet pinning. Got it. Now what I don't understand is it that we're not seeing all that puppet pinning because this is going across the screen so fast? Still not seeing it move, which is weird because, as I said, I know that all that other work is there. Yeah, see, the legs look great. I like what you did, like you said there. What I'm guessing is no, because you got motion all the way through this. So it's Dragon Vector 5. I'm going to test something out. Let's see, where's the head? I'm going to make a new comp. Okay. All right, this is 1920 by 1080. Let's say I do triple that. Okay, so what I did was where it said 1920, I hit asterisk 4, meaning times 4. 4 times 1920 is 7680. After Effects did the math for me. So now I've got the height, but very long. And if I do a solid, and I'll just put some random noise on it just so you can see something. Okay, so that is comp 1. I'm going to put this below everything. Line it up. Okay, so if I click position, and then I move it, holding down shift. See, it's going to move from left to right in the background. So just picture this was trees or something like that. See? Now you've got the dragon moving, looking like the camera is following it. And, you know, the image going by, and you still see all the puppet pinning. And you get that sense of motion. You know what I mean? That's, I think, would be the best solution for this. And you could always, with your dragon, like all these other layers, let me just pre-compose this and test it out. Move all attributes. Okay, your puppet pinning's still working. So I'm going to hit P for position, right click, separate dimensions. Y is up and down. So I'm going to alt click on Y and put an expression on there, a wiggle. And let's say twice a second, comma 200 as the amount. Now it's going to go up and down. See, like that. Now we're doing something interesting. And it didn't take us long to get there. So this is an old trick animators did with, like, you know, the background moving with the character staying still. But see, that wiggle adds a little bit of randomness to it. And you've got the background moving behind it. So this way, you get your up and down motion that you had before, plus this going on. And again, for everyone who needs to see that, I'm going to go new comp. We're working at 1920 by 1080. Okay. So if I go to my composition setting for that new comp I made, and I hit asterisk and whatever amount you want this times by, let's do 8 times 8. Then I hit the enter key. 8 times that is 15,360. After Effects will do some math for you to make your workflow go by a little bit less painfully. You know, like I said, if you had trees along here, it'd look like it's going by the mountains. Just have a big, long composition, fill it up with something interesting. That that Illustrator file, this one, we were pulling up the links to the wrong one. So that's working. Now we just have to find the space layer. Space PNG. And I think the space PNG was in your original artwork, which is right here. Okay, right click replace. And we'll go to this and we'll try and get choose layer space. There it is, space. So I right clicked, you know, import it, choose layer space, hit OK. There's your space. Now I just have to find the space layer in the timeline. Here it is. So I'm going to click on continuous raster in my switches, the little gear. Hit S for scale. I'll scale it up to fill the screen and then some. And it'll need to be a bit bigger because of that. Just make it even more. There we go. And there you have it. All right, don't worry, but we'll go over the other issues. So what were some of the I'd add a little more life to the astronaut. I love what you're doing there with the cord following him out. That's great. That null is working perfectly. It's very subtle with the motion. And then we'll think of a way of bringing in the astronaut title there. But looking pretty sharp. I like what you got. Of course, we'll have to color that, or you could just even get rid of it entirely. Kind of liking that a little better. And I love the scaling that you're doing. Okay, so let's try something out here. All right, we're going to play around here because that's what lab time's all about. Again, it's not me criticizing people. It's me showing you how to push your ideas because that's, what this course is all about. All right, so here's the nulls, there's the chord, there's the shuttle. All of this below is the shuttle. Okay, so let's try and do... Okay, all right. I know what I'm going to do. Watch this. So I'm going to go layer, new, adjustment layer. An adjustment layer affects every layer below it, okay? I'm going to keep the chord in focus. So it's going to be the doors and the shuttle. And I'll throw a blur on it. This is still a Gaussian blur, so it's other ones like camera lens blur, you can have a beautiful scale change. Let's try that. Let's try that just to push ourselves. Okay, so blur map. All right, let's go layer, new, solid, hit OK, and I'll throw a gradient ramp on it. Okay, and let's do... We'll do black on this side and white on the other side. So let's move that. Here it is. I'm going to get that so that pure white is roughly on the screen and pure black is on the screen. Okay, that's going to be our blur map. I'm going to pre-compose it and move all attributes. The way maps work, we did a little bit with displacement maps. White will go and do one thing and black will do the opposite. In this, white should be in focus, and as it gets closer to black, it'll be more out of focus. So I don't need to see this. I'm going to hide it. I go to my adjustment layer. Let's go to where the astronaut's right up in the front of the screen. Now, with that camera lens blur I threw on the adjustment layer, I'm going to go to blur map. Blur map right there. You could always look at the numbers of the layers as well. And I'll do effects and masks. Okay, now look what's happening to the background. We're getting a gorgeous bokeh happening. So white is what's blurred and black is what's not blurred. Let me rotate it in here. So white is what gets blurred and black is what doesn't get blurred. So I'm going to move the black over to where the astronaut's going to be. I'm going to give it a larger ramp scatter. And we'll go back in here. Now we've got some of that happening. So let's go back to the adjustment layer. And we can animate this. Just moving it there. So yeah. So let's go and animate that. Let's say blur radius 0. Right here is as the astronaut's getting closer to the camera. So I'm going to start my animation there for the blur. As it gets closer to it, right there, we'll slowly increase it. Not too much, a little bit. And let's see what that looks like. Oh, you know what? A smart person would have put it in full resolution. See, now we've got that sense of depth. So now that I'm actually working in full resolution, let's see what it's supposed to look like. that, and I can make my blur map. Let's move this over a little bit more, get a little bit more blur going on. Take a look at it there. Let's actually go just a bit more like that. There we go. And let's see what that looks like. Yeah, so this is just showing you the blur will add depth to the scene and help pull the astronaut, you know, away from the blurred background. And using the blur map shows an extra level of finesse where you're only blurring part of it as if the camera were focused on the astronaut. That's what would happen inside the camera body. So we'll play that back in a second. But you see already how much more depth you're getting with the astronaut. He's really standing off of that image, and you get a more sense of motion this way as well. We probably could get away with putting the cord underneath it. I think that'd look really slick. I'm going to stop this here, and we'll see what that looks like in real time. You'll notice as the astronaut gets closer, the shuttle gets more blurred. That, I like that. And then let's put the cord below. So now you've got even more depth of field happening. Like such. That, I like that because look, it's sharp and focused near the astronaut, and right there, it's less focused. Now, the only other thing to watch out for, you've got your cord there, and we don't need it just yet. So the fast, easy fix for that is right here. You're not going to need to see it until this frame. So all you have to do, you could just click and drag that edge, hit shift to snap to the playhead. Now it's not in the frame. We just changed where you see it in your layer stack. Boom. That's pretty sharp. I like using the camera lens blur to get that natural fall off of focus because the astronaut is very close to the camera at this point. And this would be more blurred, and it'd gradually get more blurred as it goes along. And we achieve that with the blur map. White is out of focus, and then the midtones get less and less out of focus, and black is in perfect focus. So, oh great, sound effects would be great. And then just figure out a way of what to do with the title, like how we're going to bring that in. I'll give you this for reference so you can take a look at that blur map and play around with it. That's looking sharp. Yeah, and like I said, it's really just sliding these orbs around. So it's like black, which is this end. If you just move it a touch, then you start seeing the orb and you can drag it manually. You know, you can even create angles if you wanted, like such. Doesn't have to be straight up and down. Black is in focus, white is out of focus, and the gray tone values in between is the different shift in the camera focus. And then you just go to your adjustment layer and move your keyframes wherever you want and change the amount of the blur that you want to have happen. Like if you want even more blur, just watch you don't go too wild with it. And one last warning when you're doing this type of effect, click repeat edge pixels so you don't get noise and weird things happening around the edges. Click repeat edge pixels and you should be good to go. This adds so much more depth than if you blurred the whole thing. That's not what would happen. The camera's looking here, and the further you get from the camera, the greater the fall off of focus is. So yeah, that's what blur maps do. I mean, it's just a regular grayscale gradient, but when you have it with the camera lens blur, you set it up there, and you could even make it rack focus. See how it's going from this side out of focus to there? You can animate that to get a rack focus effect as well. All right, looking really sharp. Just think about what you want to do with that title. Does it need texture? It should be consistent with the look and feel you got. You got some great artwork going on here. I like the positive negative space relations, so just make sure the title reflects on that. Pretty sharp. Now don't forget, as you're working, edit, purge, memory and disk cache. Like I had 35 gigs just from tonight's lecture. So that's going to clear up some space and free up my computer, let it run faster. So is that a twirl on that? We'll hit the E key. There's no effects, huh? Okay, so first off, you're not at high res, like such. Okay, so now you're at 2K resolution, and only word moving is the least important word in your title. You keyframe that, nice. I mean, the fades are very, again, this is showing an understanding of the basic concepts of motion design, but for the final assignment, you've really got to show, an intermediate level of design, like the other students have been pushing themselves throughout the semester. So it's like animation hierarchy, the order things come in. The skull, this makes sense. That's the first thing you see, followed by this shape. And you'd get more dynamism having some motion, especially if you're doing something like aggression. There should be more motion, more or erratic motion, if you will. But the elements are coming in a specific order. And like, what if... Okay, let's get reductive here. Like, what if your skull shape were facing the other way? Because aggression is confronting something, not turning your back towards it. What if there was far more detail on this skull and the jaw swung open and like fire shot out, revealing the type? All right. Always work off of reference files. Here we go. This is exactly, and also pay attention to the texturing. So I'm going to go new, 1920, 1080, sure. Bring in that skull for reference. Okay, they're both there, good. So we'll try this one. Actually, I kind of like the texture of this one. Let me scale this so it fits on the screen. All right. So you'd have the top of the skull and then the jaw as a separate layer. So I'm going to quickly just rough this out. I clicked on the word fill to get rid of the fill. I'm clicking on the word stroke to turn on a stroke. And I'm going to make a color that I can easily see so I can see what's going on here. And again, I'm just roughly doing this. I'm not doing something perfect because, this is just an example. A fast way I could have done is if I brought this into Photoshop and silhouetted it. If this were silhouetted, I could have gone layer, auto trace, and it'd make a mask for me. Okay, that's pretty good. I'll call this skull top. And I got that from hitting the enter key to name it. I'm going to deselect, so I've got another layer for the skull bottom below. Like that. Okay. Now I can hide that. And we'll just use our imaginations here, so. The skull won't be doing much, but I'm going to put the anchor point for the top of the skull where it'd be meeting the neck, just in case I decide to animate it. And the jaw would animate from where it moves, which is right there. I put the jaw below the top of the skull. And go make sure everything's deselected. Grab my pen, create a quick eye. Because we need that negative space to know that it is a skull. Okay. Or, you know what? Let's try. Let's see if we use this as a texture. So I'm going to duplicate it. So there's two of them. And remember, alpha matte, the shape goes above. So I'm going to put the skull JPEG below and go to my modes, track mats, like that, and do the same thing with that. Okay, so now we've got some texture happening, and we'll take the whole thing. Let's see. Let's try S for scale, minus 100 on the X to flip it. I'd have to flip the whole thing. Okay, so let's not do that. Let's just do this the fast, easy way. Slide everything over. Okay, good. I'm going to parent the texture to the shape layers using the pick whip, so that as I move the layers, the texture moves. So the jaw, let's do R for rotate. See, look, texture is moving with it. Put that right about there. Go forward a little bit, have the jaw come down. Do a little bit of overshoot. Let's easy ease that by right clicking, keyframe assistant, easy ease. Like such. And then you could have the fire or whatever come out, and aggression is comfort was the name of it. You'd have the fire reveal that. So if you're doing photorealistic, you'd want to do photorealistic. So you want to keep your artwork consistent. Otherwise, let's see what would happen if we did a blending mode so that we get the texture. So I'm going to copy the skull top, Control D, and I'm going to make it visible. And then I'm going to change the blending mode on it to, let's say, classic color burn. Nope, that's going to give us more photorealism. So I'm not going to do that. Okay. Yeah, so this is just... let me see. Let me read the chat. The more elements you have, the more play you'll be able to do. Like, I can make this jaw swing open and close because it's a separate layer. If you've got one piece of artwork, all you can really do is twirl it around or whatever. And when I'm talking about texture, I mean adding in these details. Like, you know what? Let me show you what... Let's duplicate this. Let's just say we're going for semi-photorealistic. So with that skull, let's do... Put this below. And this I'll change the blending mode on the actual photo. So it's like we're getting some of these cracks in it, and it's getting a bit more interesting without looking too computerized or photorealistic. Like finding that artistic style you want. We can always play with the curves on that photo to push it in the direction we want. Let's do curves on here, and let's see what happens when we play around with the values. No, we want to go like that. We want to crush it. So you can get some really wild things happening. Just messing around with that. It looks completely different already and far more interesting. So I would think about really pushing, the art style, the direction of it, the animation hierarchy, how you're going to be revealing things. If you're going photorealistic, keep the whole piece photorealistic. If you're going, shape layers, keep the whole thing looking like shape layers. But you see just how adding in texture and blending modes makes your work look more unique than just grabbing the photo that anyone could have grabbed. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to put it on here. And what did I do? I did a duplicate of art layer like that on top of it. That's what I did. And obviously look out for watermarks and stuff like that. But I was just grabbing something to show you how you can grab a photo and animate it by using these techniques. I didn't even go into Photoshop to separate this out. I just used shape layers and roughly did it. So yeah, okay. Yeah, so like I said, just think about your animation hierarchy. What's coming in? When is it coming in? Like we've got this skull here and we can do a dramatic reveal. Let's say this is what it looks like on black, but what would it look like on white? So we lose some of that and get even more abstract. So I'm going to put this right here. See, now we're getting a completely different look and feel. And let's do... I'm going to pre-compose all this. I'll call it skull. Just to show you something. So of alpha matte is one layer revealing one layer. So I put all that as one layer. And I'm going to grab one of those ink reveals that I put in the server for everyone. So I'll grab this one. I'm just randomly picking. Now I'll do number 2. Right, so I've got this as one layer. And why did that not import? Okay, there it is. I'm going to put it above. Select the layer below because the matte goes above, and I'm going to use it as a Luma inverted matte. Now look at that. See the difference? And I could say, well, I want that motion. Let me hit U for my keyframes. I want that to come in later, so I can just grab this, slide it down a bit, I got an error message. I should have read it, but I didn't. Oh wait, I see what it is. The transition disappeared. So I'm going to put it back in. Do the same thing. Through matte. Change it back to no track matte. So that's what that is. Why did my skull completely disappear? There we go. It's like that. That's like a far more interesting and sophisticated reveal. Plus, you still have that life of the stuff happening around the edges. And then if you had like that surrealistic type of fire, whatever, come out to reveal the title, you know, I'm just showing you how. Yes, alpha, yep, one layer revealing the other. That's why I had to pre-compose all of these skull layers. They're still there. I just made it one layer. The ink is what's revealing it. It goes above. I used Luma invert because the ink does not have any alpha. It's white with black ink revealing. And that's why when the black comes in, that's the Luma invert. Like such. All right, thanks. Well, like I was saying, I was showing you just a quick rough idea here. But it's, do you see the difference between this and that? And this was like 10 minutes worth of work. So, you know, like I said, just keep finding ways to make it more challenging, more visually interesting, to get the most eye-catching animation that you can. All right, well, that's about it for tonight. I believe I covered everybody. So, you know, have a great weekend. Keep in touch. The assignments are due. Check the syllabus. I think they're due the 15th. So next week should be the final lab time. We'll do the critique Wednesday during lab time. But if people are in a panic, I can always do a Tuesday stream. No problem at all, Isabella. So we'll do lab next week. And then the week it's due, Monday night, I'll do a quick live stream if anybody needs some help. Same time, 6:30 to 8:30. And then we'll do our final critique the 15th. If the syllabus says the 15th, it's the 15th. We'll do it that. Check the syllabus, you know. But that'll be the live stream final crit. All right, no problem at all. Hope everyone has a great evening and a good weekend. And keep in touch if you have any more questions or comments or concerns. Thank you very much.